2023. Could we introduce ourselves?
Nelson Giel, member.
John DeLeo, Chair.
Rick Lyles, Vice Chair.
Mike Hangy, alternate, but I guess I'll be voting
You
tonight.
will be voting tonight.
Okay.
Even if Mark shows up, you'll be voting.
Okay.
Why don't we have staff introduce themselves too?
All right.
Well, they can.
Matt Williams, city planner.
Lori Roberts, Code Enforcement Officer.
Thomas Cameron, Fire and Life Safety Inspector.
Elizabeth Littlefield, Assistant City Planner.
And
Okay, and
welcome to
the
our
guy on the
new
right's
band.
here often enough that, you know, he could be
Yeah,
considered pseudo
I was gonna
stand.
circle back, but,
Okay, just, before we get to item number 3, just a couple things. Item number 3 and number 4 do not list that there's a public hearing. There will be a public hearing, just in case somebody's here that wants to say something, it'll be allowed. And if anybody's here for the Old Mill property development, that's being presented again as a sketch plan, which means they're gonna tell us all about it, but no decisions will be made tonight by the planning board. Okay, so we'll go on to item number 3, revision to an approved subdivision.
You gotta adopt the minutes.
Adoption of the minutes from the January 1st, 2023 meeting.
move that they be adopted.
Second.
All in favor? Number 3, revision to approve subdivision entitled Upward Lakewood subdivision for applicant owner Craig Fellis. The proposal is to revise the conditions of an approval implemented by the planning board to allow for the use of a cistern that did not exist at the time of approval for fire suppression instead of a sprinkler system. The property is a 23.3 acre lot located along Route 180, tax map 117, lots 20-1-1 and 20-1-6 in the rural and limited residential shoreline zoning districts. Somebody here representing Mr. Fellis.
Andrew McCullough, and in, I believe it was 2020, we revised the Megan Fellis, the adjacent Megan C. Fellis subdivision, and incorporated a cistern there for fire storage, or for water storage for fire protection. And that location is adjacent to the Upper Lakewood subdivision developed by Craig Fellis. The Upper Lakewood was originally approved as using residential sprinkler systems. And so Craig approached me relatively recently and asked if we could revise or modify this subdivision plan to take advantage, if you will, of having the cistern adjacent to the property. So we revised essentially the wording on the plan, and we did, as we were measuring, as Thomas was measuring, lot 1 is about between 1,100 and 1,150 feet from the cistern location, and so per the fire protection ordinance, it is beyond 1,000 feet, if you will, and so it cannot be covered. So we prepared wording that lots 2 through 6 will be protected by the incorporation of the cistern. Lot 1 will still be under the provision that it have a residential sprinkler system.
Okay, so, because the Megan Fellis, the cistern's kind of right in the corner of 20-2-1.
Yes,
And lot 6 of the Craig Fellis.
correct.
But that cistern is over 1,000 feet away from lot 1.
Lot 1 of the Upper
Of the-
Lakewood
of the
Craig
Craig.
Fellis subdivision.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So is the cistern in right now?
It actually was ordered like a year ago, and it will be going in very shortly, but it's been working its way up the list, so to speak.
Sure.
So that's the only change with this whole,
That's the only change with the subdivision.
and so fire guy,
Yeah,
it seems like a fire thing, right, that we're
Yes.
talking about?
yep. It was
What say you?
agreed upon between Andrew and I and approved by chief.
So you're good?
Yep.
So how far is that cistern from lot one?
It's just
Over the 1,000 feet?
about
100,
202 feet. That's why,
And Craig was not in tune to moving that 200 feet closer to lot one?
well, he doesn't have ownership of property closer that he could do that.
Okay,
Yes, that is the
okay.
fly in the ointment, so to speak.
The lot where the cistern's going to be, he already has a easement for the
Correct.
cistern to stay there.
Okay. Cool.
You gonna do traffic analysis for this?
10 per lot.
10 per lot?
Boy.
Open a public hearing if there's anybody here. Anybody here? You want to try the motion?
Let me just this one question that's in here. This is maybe carried over from the TRT. Is there draft language available to inform who is responsible for the cisterns, maintenance, and repairs? And it's on here, the TRT report with a question mark, so.
It,
Cistern maintenance, is that clear and documented?
it is clear in the text. Yes, it is.
Yeah, at the time of TRT, Andrew wasn't there, so I didn't know if the easement language was discussed that or not, which it does, yeah.
Thank you.
That is in the fire prevention ordinance for maintenance, et cetera, and upkeep. That is part of it.
It's at the bottom of the page. It has where all the lettering is. It's all in there.
Okay, thank you.
So then you'll have to, if we pass this, then you'll have to bring in a new Mylar to sign.
Just in case.
I think we should postpone this.
The traffic study's done?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So any other questions?
No, good.
Okay. So who wants to try the motion?
Make a motion to approve the revision to an approved subdivision entitled Upper Lakewood subdivision for Craig Fellis. Basically, it's to allow use of a cistern that did not exist at the time of the approval for fire suppression
Well,
sprinkler system.
we don't want to include that because that wasn't necessarily the case.
Okay, we don't want to approve that. so Someone else will have to take a shot then.
Okay, I will. Make a motion that, or can I do that?
I just
Yep.
withdrew.
Okay.
Right.
I make a motion that the revision to approve subdivision titled Upper Lakewood subdivision for applicant owner Craig Fellis. The proposal is to revise the conditions of the approval implemented by the planning board to allow the use of a cistern. The property is a 23.3 acre lot located along Route 180, tax map 117, lots 20-1-1 and 20-1-6 in the rural R and limited residential shoreland LR zoning districts.
Second.
Well, hold on, because actually, there's a little bit of a, lots 20-1-1, I think 2-20-1.
Okay, so the word should say to those instead of
And
and?
it's map
Yeah,
117.
but I also think we need to specify that
Oh,
20, which one still has the,
It excludes lot one.
20-1-1 will have the sprinklers still.
so I think we have to,
Excluding,
that of the 6 lots in that subdivision, only, the cistern's only going to serve 1-2 to 1-6, right? And
1-2.
1-1 is going to have
okay.
a sprinkler system.
Correct.
Okay, so basically, the cistern to include protection for lots 20-12 through 20-16. Is that correct?
21, isn't it?
No, it should be 20.
20, okay.
20-12
Yeah. Yes,
to
yes,
20-16.
yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Can I second it now?
Yes.
I second that now.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, item number 4, revision to an approved major use site development entitled Ellsworth, Maine Solar LLC for applicant owner Ellsworth, Maine Solar LLC. The proposal is to revise the previously approved project by the planning board to reduce the overall size and impact of the project from the originally proposed 17,339 square feet of structure footprint to 80,462 square feet of structure footprint. The property is a 48.68 acre lot located at 889 Bucksport Road, tax map 30, lot 15, in the rural and drinking water zoning districts. Introduce yourself, gentlemen.
I'm Sean Hale from VHB.
Steve McDonough from Amoresco.
Okay. Explain the project.
Okay, so correct, we are here for a major use development revision application. Some of the folks on the board may recall this project was previously reviewed and approved by the board back in September of 2021. So it's been a little over a year since that time. And the project kind of went on hold for a bit. And in that time, the project has been majorly downsized from what the board had previously reviewed and approved. It's a much smaller project now. I can give you a few numbers just to provide some context for that. The previously approved project total limit of work was about 35 acres. The revised project is about 13 acres. The impervious area previously was about 57,000 square feet. It's now about 32,000 square feet. The tree clearing area was about 33 acres. It's now about 12. And finally, one of the major benefits of the downsizing was a major reduction in the amount of proposed wetland impacts. Before, we had about 5 acres of wetland impact, mostly conversion, cutting of wetland areas. That's been completely eliminated, and we're down to 685 square feet of wetland impact. So went from 5 acres to 600 square feet.
That must save you a lot of headache.
Yes, for sure. That was certainly one of the major benefits of the downsizing. So it's still, it's obviously still a solar project. It's still the same purpose and intent. Folks might remember this site. There's an existing access road into the site. None of that has changed at all. It's exactly the same as what the board previously reviewed and approved, except that now when it gets to the solar field, it's way shorter. It just stops because the solar arrays are now located only in the southern portion of the property. We had a good TRT meeting a few weeks ago and had some back and forth with Matt and Thomas about some additions to the plans, and as a result of the feedback we got, we've added a designated emergency access path that will provide access to the western portion of the arrays. Thomas was concerned about just making sure that they could always get around to the west side, so we've added that to the plans in response to the TRT report. I think maybe other things to mention since we met with the city last, when I say last, a few weeks ago, was that we have received our core permit since then, and we have received our state stormwater permit since then, so those permits have been received, and we'll provide those to Matt. And yeah, I think that's kind of the overview of the project, and we'll certainly turn it over for questions or whatever you want to know about.
There's one more comment in the report from code enforcement asking if the total square footage of the solar panels can be added to the plan.
Oh, yes, that was added to the revised plans, yep.
So this is basically a reduction in size.
A major reduction, it's roughly a third of
Just
what it
a
was.
reduction.
Yeah,
So my question is, since this was approved already, am I correct in saying that the only thing that we could really comment on is, well, what are the things that we can actually comment on? Is everything thrown back open again? Or is it just, gee, they shrunk it down, let's go?
Anything that has changed due to the revision is technically open, so.
It's fair game.
Right, so, I mean, parts of the access road that haven't changed, again, they're not different than what they were approved for, so that's already been approved essentially. But the size has changed certain things about the plan, like the length of the road, if
It's
you've questions
shorter.
about that, right?
And so, and the changes were basically to bring it all, like, knock off the back end of it. specifically.
precisely. Yeah, it used to extend much further north into the property and now
And is
it's,
the, kind of, if I looked at the plan view of before and after, which I probably should have, but didn't.
Mike, you do have the before.
Pardon
plan.
me?
You have the old plan, the original approval, if you want that, Rick.
I actually don't.
Oh,
But what I'm concerned about is that the stuff, you shrank it down, the stuff that's in the front, sort of, has that changed at all in terms of the layout or anything?
not at all, actually. And for instance, we had a proposed landscape planting plan at the southeast corner because that's the only area where there's any abutters that are even nearby to the project, and that is still, again, that's been retained and that is still the same as it was before.
Okay.
So similar question, just from a global sense, other than the alternative access road that Thomas requested, is there any new construction or additions to the plan where you're building into areas that were not previously? Okay, so it's
Nothing.
either the same or less, there's nothing new other than the access road.
Correct.
So the access road is actually the construction road, which is what they're building to go do their own work. The only thing that I've asked is that they maintain that road around the solar arrays and leave it in place
Okay.
as an access road.
And you're good with it?
Sure, yep. Yeah, we had it back and forth. I mean, the one thing we agreed on was we didn't want to add more impervious surfaces. So it's an area between the panels and the fence that's going to get compacted by all the construction activity. It's a pretty flat site. It's a pretty dry site in that area. It will be vegetated and mowed twice a year per the conditions. So.
For the original conditions?
Yeah, so, it's flat, it's grass, it's level, that's gonna be and the city has the ability to inspect it annually and say if they feel that there's an issue or an area is getting wet or needs some sort of stabilization, the applicant has agreed to do that.
And that's, again, as per it was in the initial.
Actually, we didn't have that the first time,
Okay.
this is different, yeah.
so all the old conditions still apply.
Right.
But this is a new condition that wasn't on the original plan.
Okay.
So on this diagram here, you said now the access road's gonna go all the way around it, Tom? Is that what you're,
Just to the backside of it.
just to the?
Just, yeah, so the original access road, the 20-foot's gonna go up the right side, which was already approved. And then I'm just having them leave the construction road in place as an access road for us to be able to get to the back side of the panels, due to there's almost a little over 1,100 feet from the actual access road to the back side of the panels. So that way we can at least get a small pumper or brush truck out there in case we have to go to the back side to fight the fire.
And the road is, this one, I mean, it still kind of goes through Mr. Awalt's
Yep.
driveway,
Yep.
past the
Yep.
house. right?
It's actually in the notations there that they will do improvements or repairs to the road after construction is completed.
And that's as it was.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that note's been specifically added to
Right,
it.
that's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And obviously this, I'll ask it, I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. I mean, obviously the reduction doesn't affect the stormwater. at all.
Well,
Or
not in a bad way.
Yeah, okay, doesn't
Yeah.
make it worse.
Yeah, and we did redo an entire stormwater memo for the city that documents that. Yeah.
same for decommissioning. Since it's a smaller project, the decommissioning calculation changed. So they put a decommissioning plan in as well.
The major change being the cost of decommissioning is less than what it was before.
Is the decommissioning plan something that city councils, not council, city lawyers should review?
It's technically not a requirement right now, because council hasn't approved our revisions to the solar amendment, but the old one was looked at by city council, so they just took that same thing, just changed the numbers for the calculations. So the legal language should be what was approved by the city before.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally exactly the same, except for the cost.
Just the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that note, I have some questions about your decommissioning plan, as I was going through it. On the first page of the decommissioning plan, it lists the items to be removed. One of those items says approximately 10 above-ground wooden utility poles. Okay? As you continue on in the decommissioning plan, under the cost of estimate, it says one site power poles and medium voltage wire. I don't understand that writing or that language. One site power poles. Are you saying it's just that site and you're removing all the poles, or are you just removing one pole?
We'll be removing all the poles.
Okay, so that language needs to be, I think, clarified here, that you're
mean the bulleted
removing
list
all the
there?
poles.
Okay.
Okay? It doesn't say that, it just says one site power pole or poles. And I was questioning whether you were removing one pole or all of them. And then when you go into the cost estimate in the last page, it says remove ground screws and power poles. So it's kind of a disconnect between the 10 poles on the first page and then the cost estimate narrative and then the actual cost involved. So I think the language needs to be clarified that you are removing all 10 poles throughout the decommissioning plan.
Sure.
Okay? Unless the landowner says he wants you to leave the poles, I think, whatever agreement you have, but that needs to be
I
in the
think we'll
writing
just
also.
change it.
Okay?
I'm just curious, on the decommissioning plan on the first page, on the decommissioning implementation trigger, it says decommissioning of the facility will commence after 12 consecutive months of no power generation at the facility, except in the case of, could it be a case that you get at the end of the life and you just say, okay, we're shutting it off, we're taking everything out? It kind of makes it sound like you're voluntarily gonna shut it down, turn everything off, but then wait 12 months to
I mean, we have up to 12 months to decommission the project, and that could also come into play for example, there's a failure during the lifetime of the project, or there's a default. We would be required to remove the project, prior to end of life, within 12 months.
Right, I kinda understand that, it just kinda makes it sound like if you decide to end the project, you're gonna wait 12 months before you actually start.
I think it just gives us up to 12 months.
Up to 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the only other question I had. Anything else, Mike?
No, I'm good.
Nothing?
All set.
Motion?
No, I'm not gonna do this.
Public hearing?
I'll take this one.
Public
No, wait,
hearing?
public hearing.
Oh, public hearing. Okay, public hearing. Anybody here Make any comments? Those
We
are-
have the letter.
I'm not gonna read it.
I will go over it. So there was public comment sent in from an abutter who was in Texas most of the time, but I think it's a summer home here. And she had some questions, a lot of which are about solar in general. So I'll reach out to her and kind of explain the answers to some of those questions. I think they're more suited for like the conversation about the solar ordinance amendments that we're doing. But I just want to mention that she did send in a letter, but I'll be reaching out to her individually after this, because again, they're not specifically about the project necessarily. She asked about the wetlands. There are 3 wetlands in the proposed solar array area. Since wetlands and animals live in harmony is the impact on animals, I can explain to her the fencing that's being put in is meant to allow for animal passage. They're not actually impacting a large swath of the wetlands, so the habitat will be maintained. She asked about pesticides, herbicides. We're not going to allow those, so that's again more general question. Snow removal, if you just wanted to talk about snow removal, if there is a quick plan for that.
Son?
Yep, that's required snow removal for fire access into the road, so. Actually, I was just meeting with the AWOL today, and he's been doing that for the cell tower, so he'll continue to do that for us, and we'll just reimburse him.
I think her question was removing snow from the panels.
Oh, removing snow from the panels. No, they just slough off.
And I mean, the rest of them are general questions about solar projects in general, and not this specific project, so I'll be reaching out to her.
Okay.
I'll just make a quick comment on the snow removal, because she did mention snow doesn't remove itself from panels in Texas. I suspect the bank angle for panels installed in Texas is a lot more flat than panels out here.
I've never built a project in Texas, but I assume that's the case. Yeah.
I mean, common sense would tell me they're gonna be more like this than
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
And the other thing is with the snow removal off the panels, if it's not removed, it hurts them,
It's a
not,
problem.
Exactly.
not the thing that we're looking at, per se. And not the things that we're looking at.
Okay. Now you wanna try it? Right.
I propose that we approve the revision to an approved major use site development entitled Ellsworth Maine Solar LLC for applicant owner Ellsworth Maine Solar LLC. The proposal revises the previously approved project by the planning board to reduce the overall size and impact of the project from the originally proposed 117,339 square feet of structure footprint to 80,462 square feet of structure footprint. The property is a 46.68 acre lot located at 889 Bucksport Road, tax map 30, lot 15, in the rural and drinking water zoning districts. Additionally, the applicant owner will update the decommissioning plan language to clarify the removal of all electric poles if and when decommissioning occurs.
Second, I think that was it.
Yeah. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. So just to make sure I understand, so we'll just modify, edit the decommissioning plan and just send that to Matt and should be good. Right.
We'll have to do,
Did you
I
want to?
assume we've already signed the original site plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant the decommissioning plan, like the edit
yeah.
about the poles, we'll just revise that and send a PDF to Matt.
Yep.
That'll, okay,
Okay.
cool. Just wanted to make
Thank you
sure.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I'll get that to you soon.
Perfect.
Next couple of days.
Sounds good.
I've been marshaling my
Number 5, sketch plan review for major use site plan and major subdivision entitled Old Mill Property Development for applicant Tim Stone and owner Arbor House Properties LLC. The proposal is to create a 17-lot major subdivision. The subject property is approximately 30-acre lot located at 30 Old Mill Road, tax map 41, lot 53, in the neighborhood, urban, and Woodland residential shoreline zoning districts. And you're representing the applicant, I guess via Zoom?
Yes, Scott Bradshack, you're one of the owners of Harbor House properties, and Matt Griffin's online as well.
Nate, can we turn the volume up?
He's coming.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, I just.
We're turning the volume up on our end.
Oh,
We
gotcha.
couldn't hear you.
We just
very
want to
good.
be able to hear you.
Yeah, good. Well, good to see y'all again. Now this is the third time that we've been in front of you for a sketch plan review. One was for another property, same concept, but the other time was last October, presenting a sketch plan review. We've had a few things that have changed since then, a few clarifications that we've worked through with Matt Williams. But yeah, it's good to see you all again today. And I'm trying to figure out, Matt, how I can share my screen.
That might be a Nate question.
I know. I think last time there was some setting you guys had to.
Nate, can you let him share his screen?
And they just
Give
needs
me
to give
one
permission.
He's working on it.
Thank you. Hey, I see it. Good. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this map here, maybe I can zoom in a little bit, or maybe not. There we go. Apologies, I had it. There we go. Zoom in. And what's this? So this map just shows the zoning that's out there. Since our October sketch plan meeting, we've had wetlands delineated. We've had the edge, the normal bank flow edge of the river delineated. And we've had a survey conducted of that edge of river, the wetlands, and topography. We've also conducted a traffic impact study as well. And so this map is just showing the zoning with that 250 feet now that we've got the edge of river delineated in our survey. This purple line here is a 250-foot offset from the Union River. And so that defines the shoreland zone within the first 250 feet of the river. Up gradient of that is this yellow zone, which is the neighborhood zone. And then the urban zone over here, that there's an existing carriage house, and this map doesn't show it great, but there's an existing carriage house over here. The green and gold dots here represent proposed build sites, proposed lots, and what we are now proposing, so what we proposed in October was treehouse dwelling units, and then tents, glamping tents. We've since revised that concept, and we're now still proposing the tree houses, but instead of the tents, we're proposing tiny houses at 3 of the locations. So those would be located up here, 2 of them within the shoreline zone, 1 of them within the neighborhood zone. The other thing that we've changed since our October submittal is we were previously thinking that with the tent sites, that we'd have a portion of the property as a campground, but now that we are pivoting towards tiny homes and tree houses, all of them being designated as dwellings, that we don't need that campground. So we'd just be sticking right with the allowed uses within those 3 zones within the shoreland, the neighborhood zone, and the urban zone. We've worked through fairly recently with Matt and Lori the fact that the tiny homes would classify as dwelling units as per the new main tiny home regulations. And then the tree houses would also classify as tiny home designations for the majority of the tiny homes that we're thinking of building. Most of them we would think about building less than 400 feet. There may be a few in the later phases of the construction that we think about building greater than 500 square feet to meet the non-tiny house dwelling definition, if probably butchering that, but it's my layman's term for that. But so we're proposing 16 units in total, and three tiny homes, and 13 tree houses. That's the same number of units that we had proposed in October. We had 16 total. I believe we had five tent sites and 11 tree houses. So slightly different in terms of number of each, but same number of total dwelling units. We're still, I'll maybe go to our site plan here. We're still, sorry to give everyone whiplash there. We're still proposing a low density development. So with the survey that we've obtained, with the wetland delineations we've obtained, we would still meet some fairly high density requirements. So within the neighborhood zone, the density requirements are 1 unit per every 2,000 square feet. In the shoreline zone, it's 1 per 40,000, and then in the urban zone, it's 1 per 10,000 square feet. What we would be proposing, not counting the delineated wetland areas or the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain areas of the property, we'd be at an aggregate density of 1 per 42,000 square feet. So that would be greater than that worst case neighborhood, or I'm sorry, the worst case shoreline zone that requires 1 per 40,000. So it'd be greater than that when we don't consider the wetland areas, but the wetland areas, and I've got it on here. Yeah, we've got a little more than 2.5 acres of wetlands above the floodplain area, and a total of 6.2 acres of wetland areas. So it's taking up more area of our site than we initially contemplated in the October submittal that we had. We had not done this wetland delineation work yet. All we had is a national wetland inventory map that shows some wetlands in this area and then down by the river. But our wetland delineation now shows a wetland kind of following a little stream that's ephemeral in this area of the project site, and then another bigger wetland denoted by this green hatching here in this area of the project. And again, it's following an ephemeral stream there as well. So we've come up with a plan to stay with our dwelling units 75 feet off of all of those wetlands as required by code. That leaves a fairly narrow sliver here in the middle of the property, but then an area here down at the end of the property as well for those dwelling units. The majority of the tree houses would be in this area of the property, kind of the high and dry, highest and driest part of the property. And so we're still working through with our wetland consultant the approach we want to take for the road alignment through those wetlands. So there's an existing road out there. It's an old road. We're probably thinking it's 80 to 100 years old, that follows kind of this dashed line here through the project, and kind of comes through to the end of the project and continues on. But it's pretty hard to follow. It's there. We've dug up some of the section of it, and it's definitely a good 18 to 24 inches of good gravel base. And so it's there, it's good. There's less vegetation in that area, but it's certainly overgrown. But we'd like to utilize that road alignment as much as possible, and just saving on overall impacts, and particularly to the wetlands. And as you can kind of see down in this area, there is an existing rock bridge that we don't have wetlands over. And so if we utilize that existing rock bridge, we'll be able to avoid any wetland impacts there, or minimize the wetland impacts in that location, utilizing that location of the road. That existing location does cut through the wetlands in this area, and a tiny little location over here. So that southern portion of the site, and I should have said this at the beginning, right on the page here is north. So on the north end of this site, we do have two potential vernal pools, a vernal pool here and a vernal pool here, that we need to wait until May in order to have the critter, for lack of a better word, investigation done by our wetland consultant to confirm the presence or not of certain species of amphibians in those pools. And if they aren't, if those vernal pools are not classified as significant vernal pools with that May investigation, then what we propose is just jogging that road around this bigger potential vernal pool, and then between this other vernal pool here and around these other upland forested wetlands here. So if those are classified in May as not being significant vernal pools, that's what we would propose, and what we think is the best outcome for the project. However, if those pools are classified as significant vernal pools, we would need to stay at least 100 feet off of the vernal pools, with a tier 3 permit through the DP. And so that being the case, we've kind of worked up several different options, if that's the case, for road alignments that would keep us off of that 100-foot setback from those vernal pools. So the black alignment is the alignment that assumes that those vernal pools are not significant vernal pools, but these wine and then the purple alignments show if both of them, the wine kind of magenta color here, if both of the vernal pools are classified as significant vernal pools, then when we go all the way around, that would then cause some impacts through these forested wetlands. But then we go all the way around to these two lines up here. If only this potential vernal pool is a significant vernal pool, then we would follow this purple alignment type of thing to minimize the impacts to the upland wetlands. So more to come there as we progress discussions with the state on the permitting of those issues. But that's where we're at right now. We've got those few alternatives for accessing these two build sites at the north end of the site. And let's see, the other difference from our October submittal is the fact that instead of just a single lot that was still up in the air, what we proposed in October was a single lot for the entire development with campground and tree houses all on a single lot. We've since then worked through with Matt Williams that a better approach now that we have pivoted to tiny homes instead of a campground, and in particular with some of the main the state of Maine requirements for a lot associated with each of those tiny homes. We've pivoted to having a lot associated with each dwelling unit. And that being the case, even though we are spread out in total, averaging for the entire area about 1.6 acres per dwelling, when not including the wetlands or the floodplain, about an acre per dwelling. There are some areas, as we've cited these tree houses and tiny homes, that for their best layouts, that there are some cases where those are grouped a little tighter than that one per acre, or I should say 1 per 40,000 square foot minimum, or I should, yeah, minimum that we need to meet for those lots. And so what we worked through with Matt Williams is approaching with a cluster development. So we've got some lots, as defined in this table here, that are greater than that 40,000 square foot minimum. There are others that are minimum or less than that. But in aggregate, when considering the common areas too, we would be over that minimum 40,000 square foot to about 1 in 42,300, about that. There would be 3 open areas, so all 3 of them along the river here. So a lot here, a lot here, and a lot here that would all be open that would be open common area to the development. And so that cluster development is a change from what we submitted in October. I think that's the overview of the project. Maybe at this point I'll open it up to discussion. I know maybe some of the questions that might come from the board are related to the traffic impact study. Diane with Seawall, who had prepared that report for us, was not available this evening. But if we get any feedback on that this evening, we can convey on to Diane.
Start. You can start, Nelson.
So, Lori, maybe you can help out here. There's a note here, assessing has 26 acres instead of 29 acres. And Scott, you made several references to the density calculations. If it is 26 instead of 29, is that gonna undo those calculations and the presumption of?
It probably would, but that's, our surveyor confirms that 29.7, so we just need to work with the appraiser's office to get that corrected.
And he's number one. If he can get a surveyor that agrees with that, then you can just take that to the assessing office and we can make changes. Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that is shown on our sketch plan submittal. This survey was provided. It shows that 29.7 acres.
Okay, perfect.
That's it?
That's it.
Jeez, I'm disappointed.
I figured you'd want to jump right into traffic.
Nah, you can
He
wait.
can go last.
Scott,
Whatever.
you have proposed tree houses, proposed tiny houses, and then the 2 hash mark proposed tiny house site to be replaced by a tree house in later phase of project. I guess,
Yeah.
why do you have it labeled as a proposed tiny house if it's gonna be a tree house?
Yeah, so what our thinking there, and maybe this shows up better in my version of the plan that I'm showing on the screen here, if I'm still showing it, that with our phasing, our first phase would be this kind of red, pink shading. So these first 5, so 3 tiny homes here and 2 tree houses here. And that would be our first phase of the development. And we would also extend the road down here. At the same time, if we had that road extended down here, what we were thinking is that as we had the road extended, as we had the sanitary sewer extended, that we could have some tiny homes down there that we would operate as rentals. But then once we reach that phase 3 of the project, so after the phase 1 and after the phase 2 in this location here, then we would progress to building out the tree houses. And so we take the tiny homes off the property at that point and sell them. That's what our thinking was, but if there's issues with that, it's not a key part of our plan, for sure.
While he's thinking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So tree houses are more permanent than tiny houses.
Yes, so we should clarify, for the tree houses, that's a tree house in name, right? They'll be among the trees, but they will have, a solid foundation, a pier foundation system, with, either timber or metal, columns that go up that support, the tiny home itself and the floor of the tiny home itself, the tiny tree house itself. So it's really just they'll really just be dwelling units, tiny homes, or in some cases those larger 500 square foot or larger dwelling units that would meet all the requirements of a regular on the ground dwelling unit. It would just be elevated.
And the tiny houses can be moved at will? I mean, they kind of have wheels, so that makes them like trailers almost?
So,
Correct.
can I answer that one, Scott?
Yes. Yep. Go for it, man.
So I had this kind of same thought when he first proposed it, because the tiny homes will be built on a chassis, and like, so by Ellsworth standards, normally something is built on a permanent chassis, it's a mobile home. But because of the state law, it requires that, you know, a tiny home can be built on a chassis, but it has to be treated as a single-family dwelling unit. And in our table of uses and code, we treat a mobile home as something completely separate from a single-family dwelling, so it has to fall under the single-family dwelling category, regardless of the fact that it is on a permanent chassis with wheels.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not,
So what I'm,
you're not considering a tiny home as a manufactured home?
No, they can,
There's
No,
no doubt.
okay.
The Traveler XL tiny home.
yeah, this is one of the units that we're considering for. Pictures keep moving, but this is one of the units that we're considering.
And Scott, these are still meant to be short-term rentals, is that correct?
Correct.
And I know we had discussion last time, staff, that based on square footage, I know there was, you know, it was kind of up in the air, you know, are the tiny houses and the tree houses, square footage?
Yeah, and we
meet?
worked it out, as long
Okay.
as he can build, I had just never heard of a tiny house and a tree house altogether. So it was a learning experience for me, and as long as he can fulfill the tiny house requirements that were set forth by the state, then we can consider it can be a tree house, because basically what they're doing, it's not being attached to a tree per se, it's going to be up on stilts and built
Yes.
elevated, and it's gonna be built with these same regulations, elevated. So it doesn't say it can't be elevated.
But these, from the city's standpoint, these are considered dwellings?
Yes, we have to consider them
Okay.
dwellings.
But doesn't our ordinance specify that a dwelling is at least 500 square feet?
Right, but what trumps that is what was approved by the state.
for tiny homes
Because,
specifically.
for tiny homes specifically, it can't be over 400 square feet.
Okay.
And once they become tree houses or houses in the trees that are small, can they be sold off?
Yes.
The tree. Matt, did you answer that? I'm sorry.
I just said, yes, they can, because, I mean, if you wanted to, because it is a residential subdivision is what's being produced essentially, so each lot theoretically could be sold off at some point. That's not their aim.
So you could have, however many there are, new single-family dwelling units that are permanent and used year-round.
Theoretically.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that was kind of along the same lines, because I'm just kind of curious as to, okay, each tiny home or tree house is going to be on their own lot,
Yeah.
but these are rental units. And so it's kind of like, I'm thinking, well, why does a rental unit need their own lot? Unless somewhere down the line, somebody wants to sell these.
So this is a concept that I don't think a lot of laws have kind of considered, because things like short-term vacation rental, Airbnb, Verbo didn't exist. I mean, this is the first residential subdivision I've seen where it's being built with the express purpose to then short-term rental them. But again, we don't regulate short-term rentals, so there's nothing that says they can't do that, but they're building out a full residential subdivision.
And the utility service and fire service and whatever other service that's appropriate for these guys as shown now would be okay if they became individual residences that were sold off?
Yes, so, again, so they have to meet all the standards of a residential subdivision as if they are going, as they could sell off those lots.
And they have to do that now?
Yes.
So if they,
Yeah,
deci-
I'm sorry.
if they decided to end up selling these, that would not require them to come back to planning board?
No, so, again, because being approved as a residential subdivision, they don't have to come back and sell a lot, like, so it'll get approved as that, but, we have had discussions about, road maintenance, the common area, maintenance and use. So when this does eventually come to preliminary and final, there will have to be a note on the plan that states before the sale of any of the lots, they would have to provide the planning office with the road association, homeowners association documents, all of that, because they are maintaining ownership for however long. Hopefully it's a successful venture, but if they did decide to sell, they would have to come and provide that documents to us to close the loop on the legal paperwork of a subdivision.
So
Yeah,
the-
we don't have any plans to sell. Anytime in the near future, our plans are to operate these as short-term rentals for the foreseeable future. But in the 20 years down the line, you never know. Something might change there, right?
So this brings up a good question, especially if things do sell. I count 4 underground fire cisterns in this proposal. So if they do sell, where and how is the wording going to be as to who's going to maintain them, take care of them, et cetera, et cetera? When do we need to have that wording? Do we have that wording now, or when they come back if they sell it? Because if somebody sells, let's say they sell the back half, last 2 lots, who's responsible for that fire cistern back there?
Right, so.
Okay?
The idea is that they won't be selling, but before they can sell any of the lots in this project, if they do decide to sell, they have to bring that document to the planning office for review and approval.
So, Mike, if you remember going to chapter 4, section 7, it says the developer or HOA or individual person will be responsible for maintaining maintenance of the cistern.
That is correct. But
So
I'm-
if that's in place now, essentially the developer will be the responsible party, and then if he decides to sell and that group decides to create that HOA, then that will go from the developer to the HOA.
Right.
Was our understanding.
But we would need to have that in writing as to who then is
Right.
responsible.
Well, I think it will be once he puts his Mylars together and it shows that, that he's choosing fire cisterns as his fire protection and that he'll fall in ordinance with chapter 4, section 7 for the underground cisterns. Because it will say in there for the maintenance and testing that those individual responsible parties, and then we could also put another notation down below it to say, if you sell any of these properties, then, there must be clear writing stated of who will be the responsible party after the sale of the lots, if that works for you.
That's fine, but we just need to make sure that that happens, because there are other fire cisterns that I know of that have just been let go. Okay? That we need to make sure that that happens. Along the same lines with these fire cisterns, one of them is at the T-turn at the very end, or Y-turn. The other 2 just alongside the road. You consider to have a bump out so that the truck can get off the road to do that?
Yes.
It doesn't show it on the plan. So we need to make sure
With this
that
just being a
happens.
sketch plan, it was just, these are the locations where they're considering of putting a cistern. And then once they go to preliminary, we told them we would discuss more about what would actually be required of these.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll certainly add that detail as we progress the plans here.
And the city will be responsible for fire protection and all that as?
No.
No?
The
I'd
developer,
like, in terms of going into putting out fire,
yes,
Providing fire protection.
providing fire protection.
yes, we
Okay.
will be,
And so, these aren't gonna be rented year-round, but they'll still have to do snow removal and so forth to
Yes.
provide you with access to wherever they are, whatever
Correct.
they are.
I think the goal in changing from campground to tiny homes is that they would be available year-round, because they'll have
Yes.
heating.
Oh, okay, so now you're talking about potential for year-round rental?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I missed
short
that.
term, but year round.
Right,
Now, is the term, I mean, last time we talked about what we consider short-term, whether the city considered, I mean, is there a set 30-day? I mean, I think that was kind of the figure we threw around last time. Is that something that's set in stone, or is that part of the
Again,
approval?
we don't regulate, because they're not a hotel, they're not a, bed and breakfast. I don't know that we can tell them how long, if it is a single-family home, and then they're picking and choosing, but I will look more into that before preliminary.
I mean, theoretically, they could rent one for a year lease.
If they wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, so there, as I understand it, there's a couple different state requirements and state options you can go there. And I'm scrambling in my mind to think of it now, but I think the one would be a vacation rental status, that you get a permit through the state for operating as a vacation rental. And if I remember correctly, that was something like up to, no, it was the opposite. You had a minimum of 7-day stay. I believe that was the requirement, and I don't believe there was an upper end to it. But then there was another state permit and option that you could pursue that was, I think it was just short-term rentals is what they classified it as, and that one had a cap of a maximum of 30 days, and I think that's probably a minimum of 2. And a cap of 30 days, and that's my rough recollection. I'm going off a memory of seeing that on the state website. But we'd certainly informed of one of those. We'd apply for a permit with the state to operate under one of those permits.
and so that'll all be made clear in the preliminary going forward.
Yes.
I mean, is the road construction standards the same for this project versus, for lack of a better word, a normal subdivision?
Yes, so, similar, like I think the plan is for them to ask for a paving waiver because it's a residential road, but we'll have to meet, the normal, road standards for a subdivision.
I mean, did I read something in there, Scott, that you would be looking for a waiver for paving?
Yes, yep, that was the conversation we had with Matt and Tom. As we understand it from a fire perspective, that's required, but it can be waived if we're providing an all-weather surface, and that's what we would very much be proposing, using a all-weather, well-maintained gravel surface for access.
And another reason for it is the existing Old Mill Road is gravel, it's not paved, so we're just continuing the nature of that road.
Yeah, but, I mean, this type of development, I don't think I have a problem with a gravel road. I think if it ended up being people buying these lots, living there year-round, I seriously doubt if we would accept it, if these lots right now were being all sold and houses built, I seriously doubt if we would waive this road being paved. I think. I wouldn't be inclined to do it.
I mean, was it possible, we could have further discussion when it comes to a preliminary, but
Yeah.
in addition to before they sell any of the lots, they would have to pave the road as well if the applicant's
And
open
we-
to something like that.
We didn't require paving on,
Neville
Graham,
Shores.
Justice Beach.
yeah.
You can think about it, again, no decisions are
Yeah.
made tonight.
Okay. Something to think about.
Did you want to go first?
No, you go right ahead.
The traffic impact study, just a couple of questions really, because, it's like you get this stuff back from an undergraduate class, it's like, here's a handful of output from from some program, the answer must be in there somewhere, right? So anyway, so my question, I guess, you know, I understand everything that you said, or was said in your behalf and all that. A couple of questions, though. One is that, my understanding is that queuing back from the 1A intersection from north goes back past Old Mill Road sometimes? Is that correct?
I mean, I live there right now, and that's never the case. I've never seen it.
Oh, you've never seen it
No,
queue back?
I've never seen
And who are
it
you?
past 5 cars.
And who are you?
Tim Stone.
Oh, okay, you're with him.
Yeah, I'm with him.
Ah, okay. I just thought you were some guy, sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, but I thought that when they did the analysis, I mean, I'm not denying what you said. I thought when they did the analysis, though, they mentioned that happens sometimes.
My guess is, I mean, July and August, all bets are off in terms of what happens on that road.
Okay, well, so here's the deal. Regardless of all that, back and forth, and I'm not disbelieving you.
Yeah.
I think they need to, in the traffic impact study, they need to say something about queuing that comes back from the north and 1A intersection, whether or not that blocks it off, because there's lots and lots of concerns about how that intersection operates. I mean, up one side and down the other. So I think that whenever we do anything, we really need to have that addressed so that everyone's doing their due diligence, okay? The other thing that I would say, so that needs to be added to the traffic. And again, I don't think that's a huge thing that requires a whole bunch more of analysis, because they do talk about queue lengths here and there, okay? So it's not like we're saying, hey, redo your analysis. It's, no, tease some more information out of what you've already done, okay? The other thing is that, there are some relatively low levels of service here, and I think that those probably need to be addressed just a little bit more, okay? In the sense of whether or not that's really impactful or not. Because if you look at one of the maps at the end of this tome, that's the traffic analysis thing. Is it towards the end? Wait a second here. Oh, yeah, okay, so somewhere, the figure 5, if you want to take notes. Figure 5 talks about the 2028 build peak hour volumes, okay? Which is cool, okay? And what you got there is cool, and that's according to standard practice and so forth. But what's interesting there, and I think that they should probably call this out too, because it makes a better case from your perspective, okay? And that is, how much, you show the existing volumes, the volumes they're going to be like in 2028 without the units and then with the units, okay? And that's all good, okay? But they might want to talk about the kind of the marginal add on some of these in figure 5, for example, okay? Because what happens is if you look at those numbers, okay, and this new development's only adding, 1 or 2 vehicles per turning movement over an hour, okay? And that's a really marginal impact.
Yes.
And I think more should be made of that personally. Because, it really, in reality, that's measurement error. I mean, it really is. It's like, you really think that there's going to be 63 trips, down the line, or is it going to be 62 or whatever? So the point is that varying that by 1 or 2 is pretty marginal. So I think they need to tease that out as well.
Emphasize it more.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a
Yeah.
question on this. On page 1, which, if I got this right, maybe help them out. Old Mill property development will contain 17 short-term recreational dwelling units. They're proposing 60. So
Yep.
if Diane
So that-
did these calculations based on 17, has she added more trips than?
Well, here's the deal.
Here's the
16 versus 17 with such a marginal impact,
Yeah.
you might want to just correct it, but I don't know that I would. I certainly, honestly,
I mean, she knows that
I would not
whole thing.
redo the analysis based on that.
No.
Okay, because it's
And that
just,
was our take too. That was a last minute change. So the analysis was done on 17, but as we were working through the sketch plan submittal with Matt, as we tip towards the cluster subdivision, concept, we eliminated one of the lots in order to meet that cluster subdivision.
and like you just said, you know, the idea of
So,
going.
right, but
Sorry.
we just didn't get a chance to have Diane update it, but yeah.
No need, for my money, no need to
Yeah.
reanalyze it, okay, based on that stuff. And certainly, if you're going from 17 to 16, whatever impact you're having, it's less. But I would
Yes.
say that, you know, you're talking about tenths of vehicle trips, which is silly, actually.
Yes, yeah.
So, the other thing was, I thought it was, this is just an aside, they included the crash diagrams at that intersection. And that's the first time I've really seen those. Now, maybe I just wasn't paying attention with other developers, but that's really nifty. And, I mean, it's a good thing to have in there in general, but it also basically supports that, you know, many of these crashes that are occurring, you know, aren't necessarily gonna be added to by this developer, okay? So, anyway, so I thought this was, you know, as, compared to others that we've seen, y'all done good.
Good, yeah.
So if you make those
Just
changes
to,
for me, I'm good then.
Rick, just to make the counterpoint, because I think we also got a letter similar to this effect, I would just mention that, absolutely agree that, I mean, the net uplift of this project potentially is marginal, but it's marginal on top of what many would consider already a troubled intersection.
Sure, sure. But and my response, and their response should be, so they should be taking notes, is that, you know, one or two trips, it really is within measurement error, okay?
Yeah.
So you could easily argue that it has no impact, although we obviously know that it has some impact. But you're right, I mean, in terms of that intersection, I mean, that comes up all the time. It came up at the local roads committee Monday night. And, you know, like, what do we do with that intersection and so forth? And everybody wants to have a traffic signal there, and that's, this kind of analysis certainly supports that in a very real way. But the state is not, I mean, we can pay for it, meaning the city, but certainly not, the developer's not gonna have to pay for
I
it.
mean, that's a big discussion. I asked Matt, I'm not sure if we'll get this information at all, but, I mean, you know, 10, 15 years ago, Route 179 and 180 came both out at that intersection. Not at a four-way intersection, at a wicked, sharp angle to Route 1A, and that intersection was terrible. It came out on the south side of Sunrise Glass at probably a 30-degree angle to 1A. But since that time, like I say, all the 179, 180 traffic came down there, then they split the roads on either side, so now you've got just 179 traffic coming out there, 180 traffic comes out further up the road. You know, we've got the traffic counts for 179 in that intersection. Okay, it used to be, you know, add another 60, 70, 80% from what's coming down 180. So, I mean, over the years, that intersection has got better, believe me. You know, we did get one letter, you know, from somebody who lived in Waltham complaining about that. But, I mean, Waltham is more than happy to develop property up there. They just had a huge subdivision put in last summer or 2 summers ago. People are buying houses up there, coming down through that intersection, you know, getting mad because they have to wait in traffic and expect Ellsworth to solve their problem. You know, I don't necessarily, you know, I sympathize with the people that live on North Street, not so much people that live in Waltham.
So when they complain next time, we wanna have their place of residence.
A note on that, the light at the intersection, I mean, staff has looked into it, talked to
Oh,
the
no, I know
DOT
that.
about
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and the DOT doesn't necessarily support putting a traffic signal in. So like, to your point, the city would be responsible for paying for the whole project.
Yeah, and I think that, and this is getting far afield now, but I think that the state is, I think, proposing to have a flashing beacon at that site maybe.
You know more than I
So that it would be yellow
Oh, I
on
think
one
that
A,
was-
but red on the other.
I
I
think
mean,
that was
it
in
doesn't
the feature.
change the traffic control, it just says, gee, here's something to be cautious of.
Yeah, I think they
And we have,
include that.
and plus the fact that there's been some new striping there in the last year or so, which isn't reflected in anything, so. But,
Yeah, because that was in the VTIP for the DOT, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I'm okay with those minor changes. But I could talk about it a while longer if you'd like.
I'm sure you get another crack at, you'll probably get a crack at Diane coming preliminary.
Only the sketch review.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is only, yeah, really.
That feedback, I wish you could have been here this evening. The traffic reports, I can read them. I'm probably in most people's cases, though, some of it, I go right to the conclusion section, and that's what we took away, that minimal impacts and a few slight mitigations proposed. with-
Yeah, now, in point of fact, if something came up and we said, oh, wow, that queuing goes back there all the time, that would be A, unexpected, but B, significant. So, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah. We'll continue those on to Diane and look to have those incorporated with the preliminary submittal.
Okay, you are scheduled for, leaving us to a public hearing. Any, are you folks here for this development? Okay. Do you want to make a statement or ask a question? Okay.
There, anybody online,
Oh,
other than Scott?
Nobody online.
Okay, thank you, Dick. Then I'll close the public hearing. Any other questions from the board?
Just
or
general
staff
advice,
or
so
applicant?
your guys' mission is essentially less bullet points on the TRT report when it comes back for preliminary. One in particular stands out to me, and I just kind of pointed out the color coding of the phases. That would be great to see it on the plan, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Also, just a request, not a requirement. If you can grab some satellite photos that show the actual foliage and the actual ground cover, those are always nice to see as well.
You know, so, here we go. So I've got it shown on this version. What was submitted didn't have that color coding, but this version that we will submit has that color coding. So phase 1, front area here, phase 2, this area here, basically that's after, following the existing road alignment, so.
So we're not seeing your
easiest,
screen
road to go,
anymore?
Right, is to here.
Yeah, Scott.
And then phase 3, down.
Stop.
Sorry, Scott, we're not seeing your screen anymore, but that's actually okay. I would like to see it on the preliminary plan when that comes back next time.
Yeah, you bet,
Great.
you bet. I don't remember what happened there, yeah. Anyway, so yes, we'll show that. The other thing on the aerial, there is an aerial overlay of the site on the application. It
Yeah.
is,
Was it? I just missed it. All right,
I
thank
wouldn't
you.
mind, I wouldn't mind making one other comment. Whoever put together the spreadsheet with all your costs in it, I've never seen anything like that presented to the planning board. I find it,
that's what happens when you get an engineer putting a cost estimate together. That was me.
Just want to share that with everybody, do you?
That was not me.
I was in awe, Scott. It was phenomenal.
10-bed frames at 800 feet, that's good, that's good.
So that's the end of that, right?
Yep, any, I guess we're all set? Thank you, gentlemen. See you next time.
Did you guys have any questions for us before you? Anything?
I don't think so. So, clear path forward. And thanks for the conversation and the feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks. Tell the traffic guys, or whatever person, it's pretty good.
Good, we'll convey that on to you.
Yeah, good B plus, you know. But I'm a hard grader, so.
It won't be that easy when she's here in person or on Zoom.
Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Okay, next one. Preliminary plan review for major use site development entitled Timberland Acres Down East for applicant Colton Sanborn and owner Timberland Acres Down East LLC. The proposal is to expand an existing campground onto adjacent property by developing 121 recreational vehicle sites. The subject property is a 39.3 acre acre lot tax map 6, lot 7, located off of the Harbor Road in the rural zoning district. Is there someone here representing the owner?
Yes, Jeff Crafts, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Maine.
Okay.
And you'll see my license number quite frequently on these plans, but it's 5751.
Okay.
And I believe Colton Sanborn is on Zoom. Just watching.
Okay,
The owner of the property is doing what they just did in the last one. I don't know if he'll have comments, but he's watching on Zoom. If they've shut the Zoom off.
Looks like we still got 3 online. No, maybe 2 including us.
just a note, he is connected as an attendee. I have invited him as a panelist, but he's declined to join as a panelist.
Okay.
Good. Good that you cleared that up is what I mean, not
Floor is all yours.
not his standing in the world of Zoom. Again, Jeff Crafts for the applicant, Colton Sanborn. If you don't know Colton, it's worth your while to meet him perhaps the next time, and he owns the present Timberland Acres campground, and he owns the land that we are expanding onto, so. I'm prepared to go through what our plan is. I trust that you gentlemen have a copy of the set, the 24 by 36 set, probably the most legible. If you'd like to take some time, get that out.
What's that? If you want to get it out, I'll look at it.
Which one would you like us to do?
I've got the cover in front of me with
Yep.
the lots, if you have that.
Okay.
It should say 00. If you don't have one on yours, you should look at your neighbors.
Go ahead.
Okay, cover page, per the TRT meeting, now has approved City of Ellsworth Planning Board on it, at least the copy that I have. And and a date. So we've accomplished that, and if it's not on the one you're reviewing, then I guess it will be next time, but.
We were short a cover page or two. so
You were
that-
short a cover page or two, okay, Matt straightened that out. The other thing on this page, it's all of the land in Colton Sanborn's holding, Timberland Acres LLC. And some of it has existing campground on it. If you can, we will come to the same diagram a little bit later if you want to wait for that, but the cover page does show existing campground and proposed campground location on it. So, and the acreage that's under his ownership is on there as well. The next page I have is an index page. It should be labeled 01 in the lower right-hand corner. I won't belabor that one. Page 02 is the location plan showing all lots. Again, we've repeated the lots that are significant. And you should be able to see a stick pin in one of the lots labeled Timberland Acres Down East, and that is the lot that we are proposing the 121 RV sites. So if you see a pin in the Timberland Acres Down East, that is the lot that will be featured in the site plan as we turn the pages. Page 03 shows the lots again. You all should have 03 and the acreage of each lot. I ask you to focus on the one that says proposed campground location, because that will be featured throughout the rest of this group of drawings. And it's noted as 121 new RV sites and map 6, lot 7. 39.3 acres, and there's a dotted line coming up out of the 39.3 acres, and that is about all of the site that we are going to use in this development. And we will cross the dotted line for the septic locations. But the physical sites for the RVs will be in this 121 new RV sites, map 6, lot 7, up to the dotted line. And you'll see that again. These are just requirements in your ordinance, and we're trying to fulfill them. 04 shows the existing site, and this shows where the drive-through sites are, where the tent sites, etc., are in the existing Timberland Acres RV Park. And you see something called a main road that is coming in from Route 3 in the, also known as the Bar Harbor Road. We'll see something like this as well. If you go to the next page, which is 05, and stop me from flipping pages if I'm going too fast, and ask some questions, but you'll get into some meatier plans as we go. But I just wanted to do the orientation to show you how the new sites, the new 121 sites, relate to the existing campground. And this plan shows it pretty well, and the next one will show it pretty well, how the two relate to each other. And I think there's 246 sites in the upper one, and the new shows where the 121 are located in these diagonal gray
So
stripes.
246 existing?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, they're numbered up to 246.
Close enough.
Yep. So there's a bigger blow-up of the proposed in here, and you'll see it in a lot more detail, but I wanted to show that the way in is still the main road, and the way out is still the main road, but there will be dual entrances. You can come and go from the lower entrance, and you can come and go from the upper entrance, which is very near the laundry of the existing campground.
And I'd point out that that road doesn't actually exist.
And the side of the laundry, yes, the only way in is to the east of the laundry. Way in, way out. Flipping to page 6, you will see an aerial view of the existing Timberland Acres RV Park. And Colton must have had this picture taken on the 4th of July because they're all full. But I think that's a good thing for this demonstration, is to show you what it looks like full. And again, the proposed is down below, and you can see that I'm starting to show utilities on here, and again, we'll get to a bigger blow-up of utilities almost immediately as we flip to page 7. And hopefully yours shows in living color all of the utilities that we plan to put in. I'd like to talk about how the access roads work and how they flow. I also want to point out that this is all going to be on underground electricity. There are 4 transformers that will take this from 11 kV down to 220 to 240, and all sites will have the opportunity of 240 volts. available at their RV, so they will be drawing air conditioning power off the grid. Septic is shown in the green and the black and green tanks. There's one in each row. And the sewage goes into those two tanks. Everybody found the two tanks up at the top. The tanks are fed by gravity. We can make gravity work for all 4 of these bands of sites. And the black and green tank is a pump tank, and that will pump out to where it's indicated as 5 fields. And there's actually going to be a 6th field that will be a spare. That was something we were requested to do by the TRT.
So trailers that are parked here will actually tap into the sewer line, is that right?
The RVs that will drive in here and spend a day, spend a week, whatever, will take the hose from their vehicle and connect it to the sewer. There's going to be a sewer stub
At each site?
at roughly the center of each.
Okay,
Plus, we'll take into account the length of the vehicles and probably move that off-center just so that the front end of the RV will provide the place to connect.
So these are all pull-through sites, I think? is what I'm seeing
Pull-throughs.
here?
We will get to a pull-through page here in a minute that describes all of the angles, the sizes, and the widths of the roads and the sites. But for now,
Question for you for just a
Yes.
second. On that page, your light green, the light green 4-inch gravity sewer,
yes,
on all 4 of these shows a break in the light green line.
yes, there's only so many
Units?
can go per line.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've calculated what each of these septic fields will hypothetically hold, as a load, as a sewer load. And I cut it off, and if you follow the green line after the cutoff
Uh-huh,
that you have astutely spotted,
yeah.
you will find that goes to one of the 5 septics, but it's the 5th, it's actually the first one as you're looking at it.
Okay,
So to keep to the capacity limits of these septic systems, and we are using what's colloquially called a mattress system for these. It's a high removal system, and it's a product that's built and manufactured, fabricated in the state of Maine down in the Portland area. So they are available. They're a little more expensive than some of the standard septic techniques, but they do scrub the effluent very well. And I think you can see the electric that I discussed. There's a potable water line in
So
blue.
on the electric, is it 50 amp per site? Is that what will be available?
These will, where we're bringing in 240, they'll go to 100 amps per site.
100, okay.
Yeah.
But each one, I presume, will have the standard 50, 30, and then standard 110 connector, depending on what the visitors have on their equipment?
Yes, they can plug
This
in
goes from here.
any of their connectors to the panel.
Here to here, and then it's all pumped. This one goes to these, and then it's pumped. So this one goes to there, this one goes to there.
I'm letting some folks catch up and be respectful as
Good.
they're very,
Just trying to follow your lines, that's all. That's great.
did you say lines or lies?
Lines.
Lines, okay, good.
Could be a lie.
Because the lies will be at the next meeting. This is all facts. So we've done the best we can to show the utilities here. There's something that the printer doesn't like, and it's my version of wells. But on the right-hand side of the page, where this is an angle slash right here, first and foremost, that angle is created because that's Trenton over there. That's the Trenton line right here. And it's outside the 25-foot buffer. So there's Trenton, but there we're going to put, in these circles, we are going to put 3 wells. So the wells will be supplied into the blue line that's showed here, and you will have potable water to all of these sites.
The wells are listed on the 8.5 by 11 copy.
They made it through. What's happening is there's so many megabytes on this drawing that things like the wells are getting dropped off. But it's good to know that they're on the 8.5 by 11. So, thank you, Matt. As I turn the page, I see that I'm getting into some things that the TRT asked to provide. It's in the page 7 series. I guess I probably should wait until next time we meet, because I didn't produce these in time to get them onto your desk here, but we have gone ahead and done the cross-section of the detention ponds, and we'll talk about detention ponds in a minute. We've got a plan view of the detention ponds, and we've got a detail of the walking paths that will run along the detention ponds. So if you flip quickly back to 7, which is a one-page flip, you will see that I've noted the linear stone detention pond typical. There are 4 detention ponds down through here. They're almost dead level, and we'll talk about them through the rest of these pages, but it's part of the stormwater system that the stormwater will go into these detention ponds. The discharge of these detention ponds will be choked by a culvert. The culvert will run under the stripes that are the RV sites, and we through the HydroCAD formulas have stifled the flow of the water with smaller culverts, so that this all remains until after the duration of the storm, and then it will eventually flow to an off-site discharge. Not off-site immediately, because Colton owns down here. So he'll be putting this onto his own land for now, and then it makes its way off of this last site that's to the south. But I just wanted to note that, because this is the first place that the detention system is shown, is on the utility plan. And on my set, I've gone ahead and drawn the sections. And Matt, if you would like, can give you a copy of that plan anytime. But also this in this series for next time, you're welcome to look at your 8.5 by 11, but I've done a full HydroCAD analysis of the stormwater layout, what's connected to what, and I've done graphs on this, and it shows that the inflow, if we did nothing out there, just looked at it, it would be 3.57 cubic feet per second. And if you build all the roads, all the drainage system, and have all the RV sites, because of these detention ponds, you will also have 3.57 cubic feet per second. So, and I've given this to Matt just recently, but the stormwater node data is available if you want to sit up at night and see what the stormwater system says empirically about each of these nodes, but not to bore you with that tonight. And also coming at the next meeting will be the soils map. I happen to be privy to it in front of me, but the soils look very good for this location. I am all the way to 08 of official maps that you have reviewed. So 08 should be in your packet. Everybody got 08?
We got it.
Okay, good. 08 has quite a bit of information here. First and foremost, the dark lines are 10-foot contours, but the tan-colored lines are the 2-foot contours that's required by your ordinance. And although the red lines are not required, they're put on here for your edification as to which way the water flows. And the site that we're doing the RVs on is the site that shows a band of 210, 200, 190, 180 running down through it, almost in the middle of the page. And you can see that we're very fortunate with that site because most of the water currently and in the future runs downhill across the entire site and then takes a right and goes down over the next site to the south that I was talking about, that's where the stormwater discharges now and where it discharges in the future. So we will keep it going where nature intended it. Also following these arrows, some of the water runs off naturally to the north and stays there without any stormwater systems doing that. It wants to go there, and we're gonna let it go there. So that's sort of the precursor to the stormwater analysis. You have to find out where your water's going now and where will it go once we build these sites. Page 9 is closer topography of that same site. The two-foot contours from Maine's system, Maine 19 TEK 42. Anybody in this room can look that up and you can find this layout of lines on the state sites. And you just simply, not so simply, but you download it and you can use the contours, and that's just what I've done. I've drawn over them so that they're highlighted and they pop off the paper. And
Talk about the bird.
yeah. In TRT, I pointed out that there's a seagull in the lines here about, and the edge of the new RV park goes right through the seagull's eye there. So the right-hand side of the lot, you have to have your imagination to keep from going insane, I guess. So,
Aren't seagulls protected species?
I think they are, so maybe I have gone insane. But that just shows you that we're using about 2/3 of this lot, and the remaining balance, we've already done test pits on the septic, and we've got excellent soil up on this other third for the septic systems. So. Page 10 confirms the seagull's eye is intact here.
Good to know.
And we're not hurting any endangered species. Gives you some rough dimensions of the site being about 745 feet deep from its north to south median. It shows you a few things on page 10, and that is, again, where the sites are located, but where the contour lines are. And you'll see that, like the big picture showed us, you're starting at 200, and it's running downhill 190, 180, 170. When we get to the plans, the road plans, you will see that this this flow bottoms out at about 170, and then the site comes up a little bit. So you have both sides of the site dipping into the 170 mark, and I'll point that out again when we get in the plans and profiles. 11, page 11, is a detailed design of the RV sites, the turning radiuses, how they'll turn into them, that they'll be turning into a crushed stone driveway. They will have grass between them, between the crushed stone driveways. You can see up top that we're showing a paved access way going east and west, and down below a paved access way east and west. That access way is 24 feet wide, and we've got a page coming up that will define the length of all of the access ways. So this is a snapshot of 168 feet of access way, and what it looks like in between them. The sites shows 3 sites and four sections of grass in here, and various dimensions and angles. And
So a question about the sites, looking at that, I presume because of the way that the hookups are usually set up, there's one way when you pull into the site that your rig needs to be facing this way. What's interesting is the traffic on either side is two-way. What I'm used to seeing at campgrounds is sort of one-way traffic everywhere you go. You've got 2 lanes, but I presume the sites themselves are still one-way. You're gonna face your rig this way, regardless of.
if we go dead center with all of the utilities, you can hit that from either side, but it looks like we might be favoring the front of the rig with where the utilities are located. The utilities coming up to the rig or down from the rig. In other words, where are there connections in a typical big rig? Right now, I've just got them centered. So if they stayed centered, you could come in from either direction. But this works in either direction. The other thing is that we do show a 24-foot wide road, because if you're coming out of this crushed stone driveway, the front of the rig will be in the eastbound lane, while the back of the rig will be in the westbound lane. So eventually it will straighten out into pure east or pure west, depending on which way you came in and which way you're going out. But you're probably 100% correct. They will come in one of the 2 ways off of Route 3, come in the main access way, and that will leave you into the paved access way and then on into these crushed stone driveways. So they'll probably enter from the northern side, and they'll probably be towing a small car that they'll go to Cadillac Mountain in the daytime and drive up. They're probably not gonna risk their rig in some places they shouldn't be, but so they'll probably leave it hooked up if they're towing the small car. If they're driving the big rig out of here, then they're welcome to do that too, as far as we're concerned. And I know.
Is the idea that these are exclusively big RV spots, or are these compatible with tow-behind campers as well?
Where you've got the existing campground up here,
Yep.
I think they would put the tow-behinds, if there's availability, up into there. And the demand right now, and Colton can talk to this maybe at the next meeting, but the demand is for the bigger RVs. People are getting into them more than the tow-behind. But there's plenty of sites up in here that a tow-behind could take. He's got places for tents up there, but these are specifically designed for an RV, but I don't know if there's anything stopping. If he's sold out up here, I guess he could put a tent down there. It's hypothetical, but I don't see why not, but we've designed it for the max.
Tom, have you looked at the turning radiuses and so forth around these things and
Yeah.
get your fire engines in there, whatever you need to do?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Are you gonna provide a turning template for the fire, for you?
He has,
You have a turning, he has provided you a turning
Yes.
template?
yeah.
Okay.
So this is actually, the turning radius for this is actually designed for Southwest Harbor's ladder, which is actually bigger than our ladder by 25 feet. So the
Okay.
turning radius is actually bigger than what our actual requirement
So
is.
bigger than you need,
Yes,
which is a good thing.
yeah.
Okay, okay, sorry.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I've got two of these going. One is also down at Hadley Point, and we used the same template down there. And Town of Bar Harbor was very happy with it, so. Doesn't mean you have to follow their suit, but we tried to consider all the unknowns and make it good and safe. Page 12. Page 12 will show you the access ways. And something that I failed to mention in the early going here is that we intend to leave the woods alone. What's out there for woods, we intend to leave between the access ways. So if you look at access way 1 and access way 2, at least on my plan, it says woods. And it's very densely wooded, and it's a mixture of, depending on where you are, but there's a nice mature growth in there, and the intent is to leave it. We've got to cut the access ways down, and we've got to cut the sites out, but we're gonna put new grass down on the site so it'll be green again. Colton has told me the number one thing that people look for when they pull in with an RV is a grassy site, because they like to get the kids out, let them play in a safe area, and then second to that is some woods, and we've provided that.
Just curious if you're planning on cutting walkways north-south through the wooded breaks, just for foot traffic trying to walk to the utility buildings.
Yes, in fact, if you notice the linear detention ponds on this drawing,
Yes.
I've run a 12-foot walkway. No, excuse me, it's a, is it 12?
I think so.
I think it might have gotten changed to a 4-footer, but we do have a walkway to the east of this, over on this side, going along. We may put a bridge across and then come up the other side a little bit, just to give it some interest. So at least along these ponds, these linear detention ponds, we're gonna put a walkway. We may try to put something else. I've done bark mulch over along these, because it's pervious. And we'd like to perhaps do a bark mulch path up through this western side as well.
Yeah. I don't believe there's any requirement for this, but it would just be handy for the foot traffic to not have.
Absolutely, and I have the shower buildings and toilet buildings going in here. Even though the RVs carry their own toilet, showers, all of that, for the state requirement, we have to do a repeat of that in case something breaks, whatever, so.
Speaking as a tall guy that camps, I'll often use the facilities at the facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are planning full toilets, full showers, and washer dryers in these end buildings. I haven't done the design on these yet, but they're showing right now on the plans at 12 by 16s, left side, right side, men's and women's. And we may have to put in these circles an additional one. We may have to keep everybody happy with the state guidelines.
Just
So-
as a point of information, when someone comes to this campground, they stop at an office and the office says, you're in site 123, and you just drive to 123, or is there meandering through here looking for the appropriate site, or how does that work?
They usually
There
hand
w-
you a map.
They
And they
give,
say,
printed map.
you're number 12.
Yeah, they
he-
circle it.
he's hired, he can work at the campground.
Well, that's what I assumed, but I wanted to make, because these are not like just
it-
guys in cars with tents,
Pretty
right?
big
It-
campground.
It's even better than that. For the existing campground, they're renting sites now. They're not renting sites for this, but they're renting sites that exist now.
Right.
You can go online, put your credit card in, pick a site, and the internet will tell you whether it's reserved or not. It's available. And you can pick, up in the northern part of this, you can pick your site for next August 3rd through the whatever. So that reservation system will be duplicated for this. So the access ways vary between approximately 1,500 feet and 1,200 feet. If I drop a few numbers there with, it's a pretty good distance here between coming in and going down the access ways to all the way down to the bottom where you're at 1,200 feet. So 1,500 feet to 1,200 feet. You know, there's certainly room for the RVs that we've laid out here. And you saw on the previous page that the site works. I've shown you how 3 sites work, so 121 sites should work the same way.
Is your plan to do this all, build it totally out or incrementally? Or?
Excellent question, and it might be color coding time. I learned that from the last group, but we're going to go to phases. And access 1, 2 will be phase 1. And between access way 2 and 3 will complement that phase. So in other words, the woods will stay, and then access way 2 and 3 will be built, and that'll get you into the campsites, our longest set of campsites, between access way 2 and 3. That would be phase 1. And then we'd repeat that again, and we'd repeat it 4 times. And we would keep up with the septic for that, and the bathhouses for that, utilities for that. The utilities are set up to build from the north to the south with the power, and the east to the west with the sewage and the potable water.
Is there an approximate timeline?
As soon as we're permitted,
How are you guys thinking of phases? Is it phased by year, or?
well, part of it is phased by the season as well. In other words, you'll see us hurrying to get a phase done ahead of the spring, summer season, because that's when people want them. And Colton is fortunate because he's part of a construction family that he has access to some equipment and he knows how to use it. And
I'm curious about this, I haven't thought of this before, but construction season is also camping season. So will there be construction going on, like right behind the first phase active sites?
we've always talked amongst ourselves about spring and fall. And you don't want to mess with July and August. But the first part of this winter, we still could have been working. But what's coming tomorrow and the day after, you couldn't get a bulldozer to start.
Yeah.
But all of these have been really good questions, and we're trying to consider all of that. But this is a very interesting project, and
I mean, your stormwater calculations will be based on this whole thing being built, I presume, because you have pavement.
yes, yes. Unfortunately, we do have pavement. And to be honest with you, I am looking at some things for pervious pavement or some drainage measures up around the pavement that we can then discount some of that pavement. In other words, either through impervious pavement or stay with the slope, the crown of the road, collect it and put it right back in the earth right there, with it in mind that it's gonna eventually head down to one of those basins. But if it re-enters the soil, almost immediately from its runoff point, then you're probably gonna get credit for the impervious being there, at least in the eyes of the state. But I don't have that answer directly today, so I put it out there as something with perhaps pioneering. There's very few of these basin systems like this out there, but the ones that are out there, they work very well. And it's as close to back to nature as you can give it with a riprap stone basin that is pervious. You know, we can shed some of the water of these basins back out into the soil and let it eventually get in where it needs to be. So there's no plan for rubber linings, those kind of things. So, but it's gonna use up a lot of 1 foot minus stone. I'm gonna flip to page 13 and we're almost done. I've done access way plan and profiles for you. And if you look anywhere on your, whether it's access way 1, 4, 2, or 3, or you go to other pages, you will see that the low point in this piece of property is right around the 900 plus 00 mark. You can see the bottom of the hill is right around 900. That's your low point. And that's the low point in the developed road. So all of the stormwater is coming to the 900 point. And as you flip these pages, that's the same. And I've taken advantage of what nature gave us, and that's that 900 point is the lowest point, and we're not having to cut or fill. I mean, in Plan 1, you've got a 2-foot cut maybe, but other than that, they're all right down there.
Oh, right, so this is brown, right?
In other words, the prudent thing to do and the best thing for the environment is to leave what's there and try to match it. And if you flip the page, you see access ways 5 through 8. Very similar to what you just saw. No slope coming back up to your east or right. And the last page of 15 shows that there's an average slope throughout all of these pages, around 2.5% coming down. The scale is exaggerated a factor of 10, so you can read it. Otherwise, it would be just a straight level line here. So you exaggerate your vertical scale by a power of 10, and that blows it up so you can see that curve. If I drew it to exact scale, it's just kind of like a flat line, and you don't get a lot of intelligence out of it. So that slope is 2.5% average over the entire lot. And we've used the the city's standards for this cross-section that's down in the lower right-hand corner. 12-foot roadways. We've got a 3-inch asphalt surface, post-rolling. We've got 12 inches of inch minus, and we've got 18 inches of 4-inch minus bank run gravel. So we're building the road right, and we're compacting the existing native soil subbase, and expect everything to hold up very well. Questions?
I think I would prefer to see a drawing with a turning template based on the Ellsworth Fire Department apparatus specs, their crank angles and following angles, rather than Bar Harbor or someone else. So if you
Yeah.
could provide that in a drawing based on what Tom can give you for apparatus specs, that would be appropriate, I think. That way we have it as a record for turning for that property.
I would be glad to talk to Tom. And I think what I mentioned about Bar Harbor was not that I used Bar Harbors. I used this same template for another campground down on the island, and Bar Harbor was happy with it. We didn't use theirs. But I certainly understand why you'd ask for that, and I'd be glad to.
So it's already noted on the TRT report here, but I'll be interested to see the lighting plan. I know with campgrounds, it's always a battle between enough lighting for safety and convenience and not shining in the windows of the people who are trying to sleep in their camper.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see what the plan looks like.
Unfortunately, there's a drawing that you don't have yet, but it was done in between TRT and now. And on the walking paths, we're going to put solar lighting. I'm just reading from the drawing. Pathway is going to be solar lit, downward focusing, so that there will be splash of either LED or more yellow lighting every 10 feet along the pathways, especially where we're doing it along the linear detention ponds. That needs to have some light so they can determine the edge of their pathways and where the pond starts. So that will get some attention on the lighting, but right now I'm showing it on the plan is every 10 feet. The other place that we're going to do lighting is on the roadways, the access ways, every 100 feet on the woods side, not the side towards the RV side, but the part we're not touching, because we don't want an RV trying to get on the road and running over the low-level lights
Yeah.
every time. But we are gonna have downward lighting there to sort of light up the edge of the road. The road edges will be a crushed stone path, so you can walk the edge of the road anyway. The speed limits in these campgrounds are 5 miles an hour. So a lot of people walk in the roads, but we'd like to have a demarcation of road and a little walking area to the side, off the edge of the road. And that will wind up down at the toilet buildings as well. Toilet buildings will probably have a light on the side of them showing where the doors are, men, women, but that'll be downward lighting, but I'll get you the lumens, et cetera, that are required by your ordinance by the next meeting.
In terms of what you need for, or needed for this meeting, there's a lot of narrative that could go with the hydrological drainage stuff and all that, so that's missing
Yes.
completely. As is even any comment on the traffic analysis as to where, how these guys come out onto Route 3, which is a very super crowded road. So there needs to be some analysis on that as well, which is just simply not here.
I understand that, and we've had 2 meetings with TRT, and this is the first meeting with the planning board. And I think we're factoring in our effort to be complete, we're working on those items that are available and we know the answers to right now. And a narrative is something that I understand will be needed, and it will be provided before I ask for completeness. And anything else like that will help us out that you're looking for.
We don't want to be like you described about another town having a subdivision and then complaining that Ellsworth is not taking care of property. We're in the same boat. This entrance is in Trenton, but we're allowing all these extra sites to come into the Trenton traffic. We don't want them complaining to us that we cause problems.
So, and anyway, I mean, so the thing
You're
is
correct.
to get approval of the preliminary plan review, it seems to me that we would have had to have had these things right now.
Correct,
So-
so, and there's been conversation with Jeff, he's aware that this can't be found complete.
Okay,
And,
no hard feelings then.
no,
No.
Jeff, a pleasure to work with. He's new to the Ellsworth process. He's, one man show. He's trying his best to. He's turning in new things to me pretty much
Oh,
every
no,
day.
well, there's some detail here that's really a lot more detail than we normally get, which is kind of cool, right? So,
Well,
so there's good news and bad news, I
Yeah.
suppose.
I
And,
think there may have just been our terminology of sketch plan, preliminary plan. Maybe again, it's not familiar. I felt like this was very much ready for a type of sketch plan review.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that we haven't seen this before, but it's a preliminary, so, but hypothetically, we're at a sketch plan review, this was a great presentation for, what the project is, what you guys are trying to accomplish, and, what's going into it.
and we'll keep going, and I hope you'll allow me to be on in, what is it, the 1st of March?
Well, we can discuss when it should come back. I feel like it should only come back when it is actually ready for preliminary. So we'll continue to work together to get these, items checked off. Now if the board's seen it, they can give you at least some preliminary, like sketch feedback again. But I feel like it should be tabled until we both understand that everything is ready to go for preliminary.
Right, but the next one is March 1st, so if
Again, I don't know if you'll get everything done by March 1st,
Well-
by that application deadline.
The next
but-
possibility would be.
The next
Yeah,
one
yeah.
is the first Wednesday in March.
yes, there you go. And my one-man firm will be working overtime.
Okay.
Matt, I mean, considering that this does come out in the Trenton, I mean, do we have to officially notify them that?
They get a
I mean, I'm
butters
sure they know
notice.
about it, but,
They get a butters notice.
Okay.
And then, right, so they also DOT, conversation with DOT has to occur, anyway, before the project can get approved for final, but.
Tom, you have a note on the TRT about, note on the plan explaining the on-site pool can be used as a cistern for fire suppression. I mean, what's there now? Is there cisterns there now, and this just to be kind of an extra
No.
amount of water, or is this?
Nope, the calculations come out for the biggest camper that they could have on site is around about 450 gallons of water. The pool essentially would be a additive to our two trucks that would be responding to the two Trenton into back into Ellsworth. We would be able to access the pool, pretty much back right up, access the pool, which has 30,000 gallons of water, as secondary means to sit there and to help supplement the trucks and stuff.
So, I mean, what, under the proposed plan, what's there now, and what's there now for fire,
The pool.
just a pool?
Yeah. The campers, the calculations for a camper to put out a camper fire is 450 gallons. Half of one of our trucks can sit there and take care of that.
Yeah.
Essentially, the pool is an additive for us with 30,000 gallons of water that's readily accessible, that's close to all these campsites that we can get at really easily, and still be able to fight the fire if it decided to spread.
Yeah, like wintertime, do some people store their campers there
They do.
over the winter? Or is there any issue with the pool being frozen or drained, or?
We've not been out there in the
Okay.
wintertime for anything.
I think-
Even if it was, as again, between the engine and the tanker, there's more than ample enough water between the two vehicles to sit there and put the fire out.
What I've asked Colton to do, Colton Sanborn, is get with Tom and come up with some language to go on one of these plans that says this is the volume of the pool, and it'll be kept full, and they have the right to use it day or night, 365.
I'll just make sure all the kids are out of the pool when.
Yeah, suck one into a,
Suck them up into a hose.
Okay, I will, any other questions for Jeff or the staff? I'll open the public hearing. Close the public hearing. Any other questions or comments or concerns?
Did you really want to table this, or is there, I'm just talking about procedure here.
Must we make a
Table
motion?
this,
Yes.
or do we?
I mean, it's before us technically before us is a preliminary plan.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we have to
I think you have to make a
make
decision.
a
of-
motion
right.
to
Okay.
say that it's not complete.
Okay.
Can you handle that one?
That was the answer to, is this a procedure question?
And I appreciate your time tonight, and I won't say this is a big project. It is for this area.
Yeah.
But, and it's gonna be good for tax base for Ellsworth, and I'm enjoying putting the pieces together for this, and I appreciate your time tonight, and I especially appreciate Lori and Matt's time, and not only the TRT time, but I call Matt and say, what's this mean, and that mean, and so,
So I'll share just from personal experience. So we're just seeing what's on paper. It's the preliminary plan, right? But what you're talking about is quite a bit nicer and more developed than most campsites I've ever been to with my camper. So-
I'm glad we have a camper here, because I've never spent one night in a campground.
Like this is-
I'm sorry.
Let me just make one comment about traffic volumes and things like that. And that is, you can run it through trip generation analysis and all that good stuff. But since you have an existing campground there, you could actually get some really good numbers from that.
yes.
And then just factor them up and down for the new stuff. So just as a hint, or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, you can go out and count them if you want, if you can go out and run all the analyses and so forth, but I would be more excited to see the analysis based on actual
Trip count.
information that you can get from the existing part of the campground.
Yep.
So, that's just an aside.
And obviously, it's gotta go to MDOT.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not here judging business merit, but I will say I appreciate the dynamic of this that utilizes Ellsworth as a destination as opposed to a flyover town for tourism. So,
And, if you have any questions going forward, or why aren't you doing this, even if it's, not purely in the ordinance, if you think it would be a better feature or something like that, bring it up. I mean, I'm an open book on those kind of things. And, I have looked at trip generation, and, I've started looking into that. It's, not quite up to the level of the Boston Tunnel. Which I was very active with.
What's interesting with this though, Rick, maybe one, your line, is there's the number of trips, but it's the type of trips. And in this case, you have RVs towing vehicles.
Oh, sure.
You've got trucks towing tow-behinds. It is,
It's a whole bunch
it's a
of
higher
different-
risk, it's a higher risk turn than.
I
than
totally
your passenger
agree,
vehicle.
I totally agree. And the peak periods may well be way different than you would normally get from,
Check-in and check-out time would be,
Yeah, stuff like that.
yeah. Well, check-out time, but,
so, we want a motion to approve, then we'll vote it down, right? So, motion to approve the preliminary plan review for major use of site development entitled Timberland Acres Down East for applicant Colton Sanborn and owner Timberland Acres Down East LLC, which is an expansion of a existing campsite. Subject property is 39.3 acre lot, tax map 6, lot 7, located on the Bar Harbor Road, in the.
I don't think that's the
Yeah,
right wording. You're making a motion to find
the
that's
negative.
incomplete.
What's that?
You're making a motion to find that the preliminary plan's incomplete.
Is that right? Or do we,
Yeah.
say- or do
Yeah,
we say
no.
that it's complete and then vote it down?
No,
No,
I think,
I
I think we
think-
make a motion to find that is incomplete, otherwise you're not gonna be able to get a second, and we're just kind of up on the.
And it's a
Okay.
campground, not a
I wouldn't have gone that
campsite.
way, but okay. So just change the word complete to incomplete in that motion.
Write some motion.
I can't make a motion.
As long as Elizabeth understands what.
And he's right, it's not a campsite, it's a campground.
Right.
That is
Right,
important.
right.
So-
Yeah.
I would offer a friendly amendment that we find the application is not complete at this time.
Okay, I'm good.
That sounds like we have a future.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is there a second?
Second.
He seconded,
Okay, all in
whatever it
favor?
was.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have your binders and stuff, I have the bag that's next to you.
Oh, staff comments, and are we doing something on the comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
I gotta pick all these up now, Rick. Thank you.
Yes.
Christmas. Figure out what's going on with.
Oh, okay.
One.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah. Be in touch.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So Matthew, speak to us.
All right, so February 15th is our special meeting to select the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. We've had a decent number of applicants so far, more applicants than number of positions to fill. I have to say, all the applicants have been pretty high quality, so you got some decisions to make. But in your packets, I included points of consideration for the board to get your feedback on it. We've opted not to do a rubric, like a points rubric specifically for the candidates, because there is just a number of considerations, like if there might be a lot of qualified candidates, but they may not be a diverse, representation of Ellsworth, so the point-based system may have leaned towards a completely professional academic steering committee as opposed to a mix of, blue collar, middle class, and academic based. So if you read over the points of consideration, it tries to balance those things within there. And if you have other suggestions as to things you think are important, I can add to that list. I can do that.
Can you describe what the agenda and the activity of February 15th is going to look like?
Yeah, so actually the agenda is out. I haven't sent it to you guys yet, but essentially the process will be call to order. We're not going to do adoption of any minutes or anything at that point. And then because there's not 100 applicants, I think if we just go through and publicly read each of the applications, and after you read the application, if the person is present, you can invite them up. They can kind of give them a short 2-minute spiel on their qualifications, or if they want to expound on their application, they have that opportunity. If you have questions about past experience, you can ask them then, get those answered. You'll just do that through the number of people that attend.
And he said they filling out an application?
Yeah, so beforehand, your packet will be all the
You're gonna
printed
get
out.
us that before the meeting?
Yeah, so February 7th is the deadline to fill out the application. The 8th, you'll have
Yeah.
all,
So you give us hard copy or just put it in the e-file or both?
both like usual, yeah.
Okay.
And then, so after you do your interviews and ask all the questions and talk to the candidates, we'll go into executive session, and I've talked to the lawyers, and they provide me with a script so that you can read into make the call to go into executive session, so you can discuss the appointment of the candidates. So then, live feed will go off, doors will close, we can have our discussion more freely, kind of build the team that will work on this best. But then when you've come to your conclusion, we open it back up, executive session's over, and then you just announce who has been selected for the steering committee.
Don't you do the actual vote in the open meeting?
Yeah, so you'll go through each candidate, you'll nominate each candidate one at a time and then vote on them, yeah.
Do we have to do one at a time, or just?
Well, the ones that you've essentially discussed that you're going to select, you'll say, you'll make a motion to nominate them for the steering committee, and then
You could do a slate, though.
you could do a slate. if you
Yeah,
want
so
to,
that you
yeah.
do them all at once as
Yeah.
opposed to.
And then that would be it, essentially. Again, depending on if everyone's there, we could discuss when a time that everybody could meet for the first meeting would be. And then that first steering committee meeting would be where you kind of establish the more regular, day of the month that's going to happen.
Good luck with that. Good
Well,
luck with that, trying to find
you
a
do your
date.
best.
You're gonna-
Yeah.
I would suggest that you invite the two council people to
Yeah.
this meeting.
I happened to speak to one of them this week already, so he'll be there. I'll have to
Okay.
email the second and confirm it.
Now, I don't know, they wouldn't be involved in the,
No, but they'll just come to
Yeah.
observe, yeah. And then be part of that, the scheduling discussion.
And what I suppose we could ask them, in executive session, we could ask them for opinions or something maybe, and then they can go
No,
away?
I think executive session, they would all have to.
All be gone,
right.
okay, fair enough.
I mean, I guess there's not really like a public hearing comment for each applicant. It's just the applicant has an opportunity to speak, but I guess you could ask if the public shows up, if they have
I
any
mean, the
comments.
council members could be in the executive session, but they,
They're not part of the voting body, so I would ask them to leave.
okay, no, I was just wondering if, you know, if they might have some input on a particular candidate that they want to share with us.
Why don't you ask the lawyer whether or not they could be in the executive session discussion and then not, or unless you already have?
I haven't asked that, but I'm pretty sure because the planning committee is the voting body.
No, and I don't disagree with you at all, but could you ask anyway?
I have a call from them tomorrow, so I can ask it on something else.
Because I agree, I mean, it's real possible that they could have insight that they'd like to express, but not necessarily in an open meeting,
Oh,
you know? Because we're gonna be talking about our insights
right.
in a closed meeting, right?
Mhm.
So,
I mean, I'll ask,
Anyway.
yeah, but
what's that?
I'll ask tomorrow when I talk
Okay.
to the attorney. And, yeah, that's the agenda. Any
Cool.
questions?
And you have a new sidekick.
Yeah, that's gonna come eventually, once we're done with the
Oh,
conference.
okay, sorry. I'm just trying to get you introduced here, you know?
know, I have to wait.
Apparently.
So if you have any feedback on the points of discussion, then I can take them down and add it to it for the meeting. If not,
Well, this is not necessarily the do-all, end-all list.
no, you
but-
could
Yeah,
obviously
and we're not
discuss other
limited to
things
this.
later
Yeah.
on, but,
Go where the conversation takes us.
yeah.
Exactly, I think it's,
Did you let her know what she was getting herself into?
No.
She's
I think
upstairs with us.
I think
That's a
she
good
kinda
thing.
knew.
Needs to
You
know.
can always go across the hall.
You'll find me there.
Yeah, she's moved up to the penthouse.
That's hey, that's the best place to be. I don't know of a better place than City Hall.
But if you have nothing else on comp plan, Elizabeth Littlefield is the new assistant planner. She was Glenn's administrative assistant for a few months, but decided that, second floor was cooler, so.
play your cards right, you'll be the planner another 6 months.
So now, have they picked your replacement?
We're in the process.
Okay.
So right now she's
Now, don't
doing-
forget, you have to train that person to make sure I get on the list.
Oh, yes, I know.
Okay.
Whoa, get on, what list is this?
Well, I'm on a list.
Right, so for the time being, Elizabeth is still acting as Glenn's assistant, and she helps me with projects that I send to her, but she's playing both roles.
Your name came up in the local roads meeting with Lisa.
Oh,
Oh, the right-of-way project or
I
something
don't
like
know,
that?
I forget what it was, but it was something about something. Oh, is that big enough for you?
Something about something.
Good, Rick.
Should I put on the top of all my agendas?
Yeah, something about something.
Yeah, something about something. Cool.
Cool.
Anything else?
That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.